Hello, everybody. It's Lenny Murphy with another in our CEO series of interviews. And today I am joined by my good friend, Andrew Moffatt, CEO of Qrious Insights. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you, Lenny. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, it's good to have you. So a little bit of history. Andrew was my sales rep back in the Rockhopper days. He was at SSI. And I think you probably just had the bad misfortune of answering a phone or an email or something, and you got stuck with me. So we do go way back.
Yep. I remember selling you or attempting to sell telephone sample to you back in the days. Maybe even in the pre-online days, not to date myself much.
Probably. But what a long way we've come, right?
For sure. Industry's changed a lot since we first met,
Yeah, it has. It has. And before we get into all the cool stuff that you're doing about Qrious, obviously I just gave away a little bit of your history, but go through your origin story for our listeners.
So how did I get into research? What I'm doing? I guess I've been here 26 years now, almost 26 years. Came straight from Ireland to work at SSI. Happened to be the one place that gave me a visa to get into the country way back when. And back in the days before online sample existed. So trained in the old telephone sampling, random digit dial, like different types of representation of sample, and got trained by Linda Pekarsky and others who I classify as some of the best in this space forever, honestly. And was part of online growing. Sold the first kind of big online job at SSI, ended up moving to Europe, spending some time getting sales off the ground in places like France, Germany, UK, Spain, and Australia and other places, and ended up running our Nielsen business all over the world, and which was quite interesting, moving work from offline to online, building measurement panels and tech all over the world for the largest research company in the world, and seeing how they operate from the inside as an outsider, but very much part of their organization in terms of how they work. So, and a lot of what we do today is from that experience, honestly.
Very cool. And then acquired or merged, however that played out with Research Now.
I happened to leave before that. So,
okay.
Yeah, about a year before that happened, I happened to leave before that actually happened. So I didn't have the pleasure of going through the merger between SSI and Research Now, although some of my co-founders did. So both of Dave and Mark. Mark actually ran ops at Dynata. He was the guy who had the lucky job of integrating, I think it was like 40 locations and 4,000 people into one company. So
easy
job. But gave us a lot of experience, allowed us to travel the world, allowed us to see research in different parts of the world and see how they operate. And it was a wonderful experience, really.
Cool. And then came Qrious.
Yeah, well, I had a startup in between that I was involved in the data quality side, but started what was a consulting firm, now Qrious, over 4 years ago. And our focus has really been on behavioral panels. So just to put it in clearer terms, like passively observing people's behaviors. So on a mobile device, being able to see passively what apps they're using and what websites they're going to, or where they end up in person, and trying to engage with people a little bit differently in research, and try to take what we saw as really the creme de la creme, like the real top quality data that everyone really relied upon for media measurement, for ad measurement. Like when you think about what people are watching on TV, what people were listening to, it was Nielsen billboard, it was Nielsen ratings telling you what people were doing. And that was all based on passively observing people, right? So this concept of passively observing has been around for a long, long time. The issue is that it's really hard to do. It's really expensive to do. And the data that exists within that environment is not easily curated. And it's really just left for the larger companies who have like large data science teams and things to figure out. So, but the idea was that if we could actually have a lot more of that data at scale, that would be much more powerful than, say, just relying on recall data. So being able to move from recall to, hey, this is what these people actually did, and being able to use that in research in different ways has really been our focus for the last 4 years. Like, so one, how do we get enough people to be able to track? And then how do we take the data that's coming off of an individual and turn it into something really usable, really fast for people in a way that really hasn't been possible before.
And to make that a virtuous cycle to, okay, we've observed that they shopped at Walmart. And now let's trigger an engagement with them to, tell us about your experience at Walmart. And
for sure. The idea is that you can, hyper target based on behavior and in a way actually not just engage with them, everyone is engageable, but then be able to leverage, their behaviors on top of that survey behavior and things like that to deepen the analysis and work that you do. So when I take a step back and having kind of watched online grow up and I won't comment necessarily on the state of online survey panels today, but there isn't too many places you can go that doesn't talk about data quality being an issue, right? And so kind of look at having had a front row seat into most of the online panels in the industry, being at SSI, because we acquired so many companies. You see what happens. A lot of things that exist today have been around for a while, and they just haven't been able to be solved. So the first is getting to a real person, right? So how do you ensure that you have a real person? So you have a lot of digital fingerprinting tools that exist on the front end, and they capture sometimes as much as like 30-40% of traffic, like coming into an environment or into a survey, but they certainly don't catch everyone that is bad coming into your system. So we've had, because you don't have a way to get to a real person, we've created a series of mechanisms to like make sure they're real, either through surveys or some tools within how, panel companies engage with them. And in the end, it requires more of a respondent from a question base to prove they're real. There's really not any technology solutions that allow that to happen, right?
Yeah.
So I have this big kind of overarching thing. And if I look at that in isolation, like the real way that companies have found survey-based fraud beyond digital fingerprinting up until this point has been very much driven from like maybe red herring questions and things like that. But the most optimal way has always been asking them open-ended questions, right? So a bot's not smart enough to answer a question in a way that that would allow them to go undetected.
Well, yet.
Up until now.
Right.
And so like you've seen AI operator and other types of operators out there, right? So that's the future of bots. And I think the future of real verified people is a necessity in the next, like immediately, honestly. It has to be a 2025 thing for most companies. And what that will do is restrict supply. And that's kind of what the second problem today is, which is how you automate and programmatically bring all of that supply into your environment, right? So that happens primarily through routers, across every single company that operates in this space. Routers are basically set up so that you can understand someone against what you have in terms of real live survey volume at that time, or you're creating profiles of people so that you can hyper target them in some way in the future, right? And that's created a very poor experience for people that are taking surveys.
You're being so politically correct. But go ahead.
And but it's also like there's just too many questions that end up in an ecosystem, right? Where it's almost in some ways like maybe 5 or 10 minutes before someone gets to your survey today, after getting through everything in order to prove they're real and to match up to the right survey and to go through a few screeners and do everything. And that's a lot of wasted time, right? And it's the part of the ecosystem that concerns me the most, because it's the participants' time that will drive this forward in the future, right? And so how do you get to real is important, because you have to validate the data you're collecting, but making sure you got people to get data from in the beginning is really important. And so what we've been working on both of those things is trying to use passively collected data to make that whole process work a little bit better. So when it comes to real, what we like to do is passively observe people and see exactly what they're doing. So are they using auto clicker apps on their phone? Is their device plugged in and at 100% charged all the time? Are they on certain websites? Are they on 50 different panels? And you can see that, and that's all they do within that device, right? They don't go anywhere else except like take surveys and things. We see all of that behavior, and we remove them from our data set in the beginning, and we get to make sure that we are only selecting from people who we determine to be real. We've done some tests up against survey panels. We perform much better because of our ability to get to real. You obviously have people that are real that aren't great survey takers. You certainly have people that are real that are not great qual participants, right? So getting to your real doesn't mean you always get great data all the way through from every single person, but it ensures that the people that are in that environment are real to begin with, and that's the main thing. The second thing we've done with the behaviors is we've profiled people based on their behaviors. So rather than asking people, hey, are you interested in golf? Yes or no? We actually know you're interested in golf because we saw you using golf apps, or you are watching golf videos on TikTok, or you're show up on a golf course. And that's a much stronger predictor of what your hobbies and interests are. We know exactly what grocery stores you shop at. We know exactly what social media behaviors, what platforms you're using and how much. And that goes into how we determine what your profile looks like. And so that takes all of that burden of asking 20, 30 questionnaires of respondents away, right? And because we're collecting all of this information, we also don't need routers, because we can hyper target your heavy McDonald's buyers, or your people who bought Metamucil online, or the people that bought, Purina cat food. We see it all within the device. And so we see a world in the future at scale where we move from this, if we look at the early days of online research, everything was one-to-one. What I mean by that is you invited one person to one survey, right? And that's what existed. And the world migrated to one-to-many. So let's bring a survey participant into this world and let us figure out and optimize their experience and the ability to match them to surveys accurately. In the end, I think that's what's caused much of the issues within the industry. It's caused a degradation in the panelist experience, and it's the part that needs to get fixed fast. And so the ability to track people's behaviors, observe what they're doing, gives you the ability to move back to one-to-one, because you want to bring that person who had that behavior into your survey. And because you see 20,000 things that people are doing every month, you don't need to ask questions about who they are. And you wouldn't think of it anyway, right? So if you wanted to find the person who went to a Tractor Supply store in the past 30 days, you're not going to ask that in a profiling questionnaire. You might ask that real time, right, in your routers, but we know exactly where that person was, or they were on that website, and you don't have to question it. And that's allows us to create that one-to-one. The last part is all that data allows you to actually shorten questionnaires for the first time, which is been the crux of, say, every sample company saying, hey, you're throwing too many long questionnaires our way. It used to be by our data. Nobody trusted that data because no one trusted the source of the sample. And so we're trying to change that approach, where the data that you're appending is actually that person's observed behaviors from the past 30 days or whatever time frame you spoke. So instead of asking in a survey, hey, Lenny, how much time did you spend on Facebook last month? And how much time did you spend on TikTok? And how many times did you go there? And like, you wouldn't get it right. You'd probably be as much as 80% wrong. And B, we can append that to your survey data. So you as a researcher can now have real behaviors that you're appending to your survey data. And from there, allowing you to do a lot more with your analysis. You can do simple things like create a media plan from a group of concept acceptors just by understanding what media they're spending time on, or you can go as deep as stripping out half of your segmentation questions and replacing them with behavioral variables to create your segments and things like that. So really able to, I think, take a researcher and give them the same type of methodology. You want to field a survey, but actually bring a lot more information on that person into that analysis, so that, in the long run, we can create shorter surveys. We can eliminate the front end, and we know that everyone in the middle is real. And kind of that's how we're working on kind of reshaping that view of the world.
Well, you know that you're preaching to the choir in terms of the vision.
Yep.
I'm sure the audience knows that as well. So somebody's got to pull it off. I think it's going to be you. And there's certainly other, there's other companies that are playing in similar arenas. I think what's interesting is that at this whole time that we're trying to make a better primary research experience, sampling experience, along comes AI. And there is so much movement towards the buzz term is all synthetic sample. Okay, great. But it's got to be based off of real sample, real data,
correct,
real data assets. And that's how I've begun to kind of think about anybody who has access to audiences, to consumers, that is a data asset if you can extract and engage and build that with platforms like Qrious. And it seems as if the demand now is shifting on the AI side from just all the digital exhaust in the world to focused, single source, individualized first party data, to start building real business applications, similar to what we think of as research, a concept test, whatever.
Yep.
So it seems like you're getting it from both sides, right? From an opportunity standpoint, we still have the traditional kind of research space, and with the more transactional engagement, that's broken, needs to be fixed. You're fixing it, while at the same time you're enabling this development of the data asset that can feed all of the AI models. Is that kind of your take on?
Yeah. So AI itself is really it's so impressive, like what it's been able to do in such a short space of time,
Sure.
honestly. Like if
Right.
you asked me 5 years ago, like what's going to replace Google in like a few years, like Google search, I was like, nothing. Like it's not going to happen, you know? And I think it's already changed in like a year, right?
It,
So
it has. The latest numbers are they're we see it in Greenbook from our we see like our search data, and the we're it's the AI search is increasing while Google is decreasing. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And it just changes, like it to me, it allows people who done right, like who aren't necessarily trained researchers to conduct research in the future, right?
mhm,
And it comes back to your point, which is like what that data set looks like in a way, right? So right now, much of the data collected in the world outside of people's sites and things like that, a lot of that's behavioral. A lot of it is actually like recall based and survey based.
mhm.
And that's feeding a lot of these models. A lot of people have history in those kinds of things. You think like a lot of models are built on like years of historical data, super powerful, and it's going to like AI will enable all of those things to move faster. But as you move forward, like the most critical thing with AI is the data, right? And this the play has been always like you have your own first party, like I collected these people, like you see what they do in your apps or your websites or from what interactions you have with them through CRMs and different things, and then you try to like connect that through like other third party channels and bring in an understanding of them that might be their profiles or different things. And there's a lot of money now that going into privacy, to spending a lot of money with third party data, really just to get a more complete understanding of what a person looks like, and again to feed into AI with more outcomes and more predictions that make models stronger. um, we see we're creating data assets for people. We're creating data that is observed behavioral data. I think I mentioned it earlier. It's really it's the highest fidelity type data there is, and that like you're eliminating bias. You're eliminating. You're just really observing what's going on, and so our goal is to create data, behavioral data at scale, so that we can be at the source of feeding those models. And not just AI models today, but also all different types of agents in the future, right? So if I look, a few years down the road, I see the world as like you're replacing like point in time data collection that happens today with always on behavioral data collection. And then you're having to maybe augment this data with offline data or TV data or other things. But once you do that, then you change like what data you need to collect in a
Yep.
survey.
Yep.
To me, the role of a survey will change dramatically over the next 3 years, and the ability to interact with that data set, rather than running surveys, is a way that I see things happening in the future. But it comes down to how robust that data set is in the beginning, and it's got to be fit for purpose for what you're trying to solve. And then on the agent side, if you take it a step further, like if I take like an easy example, it'd be like a marketing agent where like we collect like what ads people are watching or seeing passively on social or in Google display ads and things on their devices. We're able to see which of those ads are more successful passively by how long it's taking people to show up at a brand,
Mm.
how long it's taking them to click on a website, go to an app. We also see like messaging in those ads. We plan to see creatives in those ads later on this year. And so if you have all of this like learning at scale from a large audience, that's what's feeding into your agents. And so you could have like, hey, look, here's all the ads in QSR. We saw like 50 million ads in the past like month amongst our audience. Which of those are driving the highest engagement? Is TikTok performing better this week? Is this offer performing better this week? And then being able to feed that into an agent that understands that, and then autonomously go change your campaigns on Meta or on Google and places like that. Like, that's where we see the future going with this stuff. And we're at the heart of trying to create the data asset at the core of it all that supports all of that.
So no big job.
Someone's got to do it, Lenny, like you said, right? So,
so I want to be in audience. I should do full disclosure, right? Obviously, Andrew and I have known each other for a long time. Also, have had the privilege of working pretty closely with you and your team in the last few months and helping to do this. And anybody who's listened to me knows I've been, I couldn't pull off what you were doing. I tried. And I failed. So, and you are not failing, and that's just that's amazing that's happening. And it's been a privilege to try and play some small role in telling you what not to do, based on my own experience. But anyway, so just full disclosure, audience. But totally agree that's where we're going. All signs point to there. I used to have a magic 8-ball on my desk somewhere. I don't have it anymore, but I'd shake it up and all signs point to yes. We are that is just telling the future. That's like near term. It's happening now, just not fully realized and scaled out yet, but we're there already.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Now, here you are with an ambitious project, truly transformative in many ways. As a startup, because you're still early stage. What have you learned along the way from that standpoint? Right, of going on this journey of trying to tackle a great big honking problem that has a great big opportunity. But you're scrapping, as a startup. What's been the lesson there?
Oh gosh, so many.
Don't do it.
We got another podcast going on. Like I work for a company and watched them grow up a long time. I probably never fully appreciated having the support of like different functions and money to do different things along the way. It's been the hardest thing that I've ever done, and professionally, but then also like personally, because you don't really grow a business without growing yourself, I don't think, and so it kind of pushes you in every direction. We took a challenging time to try to do anything because it happened like right in the middle of COVID. And well, they say, I did read that sometimes the best things like start in really challenging times, but it also created an environment, I think, over the last few years where people didn't want to spend money on new platforms and new tools, and we're more scaling back in terms of the inventory of platforms and things that they had, rather than investing in anything new. And a lot of them actually shut down, like bringing on new suppliers, and just like we're capped, and so the journey is quite hard because you're dealing with a lot of like setbacks. People's timing is never the timing you want to survive in the way that you want, right? Yes. And so really the only thing that gets you through is believing in what you're doing, honestly. And that belief comes in different ways, and it can go at different times based on what happens as well. And you have to kind of get through it. So obviously the biggest thing is having someone like a big name out there, like buying your stuff and validating what you're doing. Luckily we're in that boat right now, but we lost opportunities that we should have won because we didn't have the brand name of a big research agency and things like that, right? So
right.
So we've had to like and we also have a product that we could have created anything from, honestly, which is kind of weird to say, but like, because you see everyone's behaviors, you can create a retail product, you could create an ad product, you could create a survey product, you could create just a pure full service research firm, you could do just creating tech, creating data, and so like figuring out like where you belong in the world and what role you want to play, and like, and then committing to that, but not in a way that's like, this is what I'm doing, because that's kind of the death of a startup, but just having some kind of North Star that you kind of want to live against, you know, and for us, it's actually trying to create a new methodology in the be a big one. So so that takes time. And so our first phase was, we kind of was bootstrapped for a couple of years and figured out what we had. And then at one point we were like, this is too good not to like become a business. So we went out and raised some money to stop consulting, basically. And then you've got other people to answer to and talk to, but also help you kind of get through that phase. And I would say along the way, because the hardest thing about a startup is probably just not having money, honestly, as much as you would. You can't invest ahead, right? You have to think like,
as in life, right?
Right. You just have to think shorter term, honestly, because you don't have the resources to think beyond that, right? And so I actually had this conversation with someone yesterday. I said I would have made different decisions if I had money at different times, right? And maybe not the right ones, even though it felt right at the time. Like the one thing you need most is just resilience, honestly, and just being able to like pivot and get through and find that path forward and be resilient about it. And we're out, you know, raising more money. We're doing our thing. We believe in, like, we believe so much in what we're doing right now that I kind of think it can't fail, because we've seen too much evidence to know like how much it solves current problems to know that it will. So I would say for the past like 18 months, even though at times may have been really challenging to get through from a startup point of view, our belief has gotten stronger. And that's the one thing that's, without that, I think you're kind of dead. You need to know that you're into that idea and that concept, and you really want to bring it to life. And that's what drives you more than anything else. So,
yeah. Well, there's a kind of a self-reinforcing component to that. It's almost like boot camp, right? Or any other goal set and that's challenging, and you go through that, and the more you succeed in going through it, solving problems, you know, building that resilience, then the more confident you become. And to go through that, it's going through the crucible, and that may be almost the requirement to be a successful entrepreneur. But I know for myself, all of my failures, as much as I regret my failures from the standpoint of, you know, affected other people or time lost or whatever, right? I'm not, woo, that was great. But absolutely appreciative of the experiences. And think that I'm better for that overall. Although I'm glad that I'm not a CEO right now, because you know, you go do those things. But but that learning process, it makes us better people, I think.
Totally. I also call myself unemployable now as well.
So. Oh, absolutely, dude. I'm the most unemployable person on the planet. I am. I have to tell me, like, what? I'm an entrepreneur. Why do you think that? It's because like nobody else would hire me. So, you know, yes, I'm too big of a pain in the ass, and I had to feed my family. So I'm an entrepreneur now. So, you know, how do I turn my character flaws into motivation? You know?
For sure. But I have the utmost respect for honestly anyone who's done it and succeeded and got over that hump and has their own kind of business they're leading, just because it is so challenging. It's yeah, it's been eye-opening actually how difficult it is to do something like that. And in our world, we have to educate people to buy as well, which is a little bit harder, right?
Yeah.
So we're taking people on a journey. It's not like you're switching out someone immediately, right? And you're convincing people like this is
not a
the
better widget. It's not an upgraded widget.
right.
So, yeah.
And so those timelines are also longer, and they're the curse of a startup in a way, right? Because the more time it takes, the less money you have to get there, right? So but like I said, that validation comes, then that gives you more belief, and the more people start to come on board, that just snowballs. And our snowball's getting bigger every day now. So
which also has its own share of challenges, right? You remember the FedEx commercial where the people just went online, right? And they see the first order come in and they're like, oh, great. Then it starts getting bigger and bigger. And it's that oh shit moment, right?
Yeah.
Is it going to work? Oh shit, is it going to work? Oh shit, it worked. What do we, now what do we do? Now we got to deliver. So
we're in that phase right now, and it's very challenging. Yeah, it's very difficult because you sell your product, you try so hard, you get your opportunity, right? And people believe in it, and then you have to deliver against it no matter what, right? And so it's hard. We're out hiring aggressively right now to support the growth, and it's a good problem to have. It is it's a different set of challenges, right? And so that's why we're raising more money to basically think beyond a few months ahead, right? So allow us to look 12, 24 months ahead, hire the right people, make the right decisions. And because I think we're just scaling what we've built rather than figuring out like product market fit and all of that kind of stuff. We're hopeful that goes fast and makes our life a lot easier. So, but yeah, cash is king for growing, right? And what's also interesting is like bigger companies don't necessarily pay fast either, right? So you're, as a smaller company, like fronting a lot of things just to get opportunity, and it feels like a weird dynamic in that sense, but it's part of what you got to do.
I'm many of a company that have almost gone bankrupt, winning a big contract with a very large company, but that waiting for the payment creates a whole other, that's a whole other conversation, right? It's like, come on guys, please pay, especially if you're dealing with a smaller company, don't make them be your bank.
Exactly. So I'd like,
know who you are, big brands, who you are, pay fast. So,
and the other challenging part too, honestly, is like banks don't give startups money for the first 2-3 years, right? Like your normal channels of getting cash are kind of dried up, and you're kind of left out to yourself to figure things out. So having not raised cash either before, that's also an interesting challenge, trying to go through, find investors, sell them on your vision, sell them on your concept. So,
and it's a full-time job. Raising cash is just as much full-time job as selling. And the more that you focus on raising, the less you can focus on selling. I mean, it's again part of that crucible process for entrepreneurs. It's not easy.
No, it's not. But happily we're 4 years into it. I think we've built up a lot of resilience. We've built a lot of really cool things, and ready to scale. I love scaling SSI when we were there, right? We scaled it quite a bit. The difference is they had cash, right, to be able to spend and invest quickly in things. So we need to get ourselves into that space to do that, which is what we're doing right now. And then scaling's hard, but I like scaling because there's a great energy in scaling. People are excited. People see the future, the potential, and it's you get the right people when you're scaling. You can create a lot of energy and move very fast. So I'm excited for this year to start doing some of that stuff meaningfully, and start building some energy out there and moving people more and more to at least experiencing or touching behavioral in a way they haven't before. And yeah, the more people we can do that to, obviously, the faster we get to grow. I left SampleCon yesterday. I was there for 2 days. I had like 30 meetings, I think, in 2 days. It was insane. I showed everyone behavioral, and most reactions are like, wow, like this is what's possible. Like, it's the dream of like not just grabbing a person in a point in time. It's that person in a point in time, but understanding what brought them there, right? So what ads and what shopping and who they are and what people they are. So
yeah. Terms like multi-touch attribution, you know, path to purchase, all of those things, the understanding, what is it? Google called it the zero moment of truth, I think, of getting to that, understand how people get to the decision.
Yeah.
But without asking them. Yeah, hugely powerful.
Powerful. And brands are starting to see it, right? Because we're showing them more, and that's just a matter of time, right? Before like they start to want more of that stuff. And so it's a timing game. You know, it's hard sometimes, but ultimately very rewarding when you get people on your side and moving in that direction. And behavioral is here to stay, and it's going to grow and has the power to do a lot of things. And I'm so really excited. Like, we're in the middle of it all, and we kind of figured out our way of trying to solve the problem, whether everyone kind of jumps on board or believes it in or not. But it doesn't really matter, because I think we're going to build it regardless, and those that like it will join. And we've got a couple of different sides. We have our network side, which is people who want to create their own data assets, who want and sometimes to understand their audience or make money from their audience, or start like changing how things are working. And the supplier base coming on board is really interesting, because that allows the future to happen. If you can take the existing supply in the ecosystem and move them slowly into behavioral, and then the more you do that, the client side are also kind of moving faster too in asking for behavioral at the same time. So like AI will change the industry immensely. I see it over the next 5 years. I don't know like the role of what the role of a panel company looks like in 5 years, what the role of a research company looks like in 5 years, or a consulting firm, and what tool set they're using. But I don't see them using a lot of the same tool sets they're using today.
Yes. And but the need for data will not change. And even, like we touched on, I want to make sure for our audience, synthetic sample.
Yeah.
Purely synthetic, made up. That sounds disparaging. I don't mean it that way, but the type of synthetic sample that is built off of public data sources, it absolutely has its use cases.
Yep.
So, but it is not the same as building personas off of real data, at the consumer level, real people off the consumer level. And and yes, we'll see more of that from the standpoint of we'll go and ask the existing data set first before asking a new question, but there will always be the need to ask new questions to fill in gaps. And but it all rests on, to your point, all those other pieces may change. What won't change is the need for understanding humans to answer a business question related to the human. And you'll be powering that.
And just ask them the questions you want to know. Because you trust everything else around them. Really, it's really just replacing trust. And the only way you can replace trust is by having something you can actually trust, which is observed behaviors, right? It's and it's fundamental. That's all we're really doing, Yeah.
We saw that you were driving past McDonald's, and you had recently seen an ad for McDonald's. You pulled into McDonald's. We know that you ordered, a double cheeseburger with fries. great, we'll have all that, but how to taste.
Right. Why did you go there versus going to Chipotle? You know?
Right. What? Yes.
Yeah.
How is your service? You
Right.
know, and those questions are will continue to be important questions that we will need to ask
Totally.
to get there. Andrew, you and I can go on for a long time. I want to be conscious of your time as well as the listeners. Is there anything that any final thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up?
Probably behavioral, honestly.
Spoken like the entrepreneur. So, you know,
like there's only like honestly, you'll be blown away about how powerful it is, and how easy we make it for you. Right. That's really been our job. Right. So let's take something as powerful as behavioral and let's put it into a place where you as a researcher, you as a marketing person, within your organization can touch insights, can touch behavioral in a way that's comfortable to you and easy for you to consume. And now's the time to do it, honestly.
There you go. There's that CEO message.
I'm here. I've got an audience, Lenny. You know, you can't.
I got it, man. I saw what you were doing, putting in there like, we're raising money, we're hiring. Come try behavioral.
We're here.
Absolutely. And I will encourage audience, do that. So on that note of whether you want to help them with the investment, buy services, or you want to work for them, how can people reach you?
LinkedIn's probably always the best way. And you're making me sound like I should have a Jerry Maguire moment or something. And like, who's coming with me?
Help you. Oh. All right. On that note, we should probably wrap up. All right. So LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, is always the best way. I'm on there all the time. So
okay. Thank you so much. Best of luck. Obviously, listeners, as I hit my camera and mess it up, reach out to Andrew. We'll be back for another edition of the CEO series soon with somebody else. In the meantime, thanks to our sponsors, our producers, and most of all to our listeners. Everybody take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.